ובדרך חטאים לא עמד, ובמושב לצים לא ישב. כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו, ובתורתו יהגה יומם ולילה. והיה כעת שתול על פלגי מים, אשר פיו ייתן בעיתו, ועלהו לא ייבול, וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. לא כן הרשעים, כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח, על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, החטאים בעדת צדיקים. כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים, ודרך רשעים תאבד. מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי, אדוני מיגור באוהליך, מישכום בהר קודשך. הולך תמים ופועל צדק, ודובר אמת בלבבו. לא רגל על לשונו, לא עשה לרעהו רעה, וחרפה לא נשא על קרובו. נבזה בעיניו נמאס, ואת יראה אדוני יכבד. נשבע להרע ולא ימיר, כספו לא נתן בנשך, ושוחד על נקי לא לקח. עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בינו דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי שובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך אימה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. ישנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. I want to start with offering condolence to Bruce's mother, Shirley, to his wife, Bethany, to the children, Aaron and Elaine, Jeremy and Meredith, Rachel and Mark, to the grandchildren, Michaela, Braden, Peyton, Aiden, Harper, Caleb and Ailey. I hope I pronounced the name right. If not, don't kill me. And to his sister, Gail. Yesterday, when I was sitting with the family, I'm sorry, but I enjoyed it. Even it was a very sad occasion, but it was just enjoyable to sit with such a nice family. I always enjoy to spend time with them. But it was again, after a long time, we didn't see the whole family together and telling the stories about your father and to sit around and to see the three kids, all of them married, with children, and committed to a Jewish life. It was just a pleasure. And as I told Bethany, this is not taken for granted. I know many, many people and many families. This is not the usual. This is not the norm. This is the abnormal. In a good way, but this didn't happen by mistake. It didn't just happen. You wake up in the morning and you have a whole family with children and grandchildren, they get along, and so on. Yesterday you told me that Bruce told you when you were dating, a long time ago. When you got married, you were 19, he was 20. That you were dating, obviously, was before that. You told me you met him when you were 15. He told you then that he wants to make sure he spends time with his family, with his children. He said his father was very busy making a living. He couldn't do it, but he wants to make sure that family comes before business. And the kids told me that he lived up to every inch of it. He went to all the practice, used to get up with them in the morning. We were all swimmers, all three of them. And you start swimming 6 o'clock in the morning, you have to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30. I still, for the life of me, I cannot understand why people get up so early in the morning in a winter night when it's a snowstorm outside to go to swim. Something has to be, you have to see somebody, guys. I cannot, and I heard it the first time in America, I looked at the guy and said, and you get up to take your daughter to swim? He tells me, yes. And it was a snowing night. I told him, tomorrow morning? He tells me, yeah, sure. God bless you guys. But your father is to get up with you early in the morning and go with you and to stay with you, not just drop you off and leave. And then in the afternoon come back and do for everything that you did. And he lived up to it. And the same thing with the grandchildren. I saw him so many times in the synagogue, coming for every event. And before I knew his name, I knew he's a part of the Salomon family. He's coming everywhere. We see him constantly. Because he was a very quiet person. He was out. I barely talked to him quite a few times. You know, it's in the Torah, it's written about two tribes who came to ask from Moses for a piece of land in the other side of the Jordan. And they told them we need it for our business, and we'll build the stables for our animals and houses for our families. And when Moses gave them the answer, he turned it around. He says, your family comes first, and then your business. Your father, Bus, your husband, your son, your father, your brother, he had his priorities straight. He knew what's the most important thing. And that's what produced such a beautiful family. It wasn't easy. And when you look now on this family, it's a huge blessing. You were married for 50 years. 50 years in Judaism, when you say in the Torah, they say forever, it means 50 years. 50 years is forever. And that's what it's all about. You lived a life together. It's a completion. And somebody is married for 50 years, he completed something. It's called Olam. That's why there is Jubilee from the Bible. The whole idea of Jubilee comes from the Bible. Jubilee is 50 years. And that's the Jubilee from the Bible. Because 50 years is like a generation, it's forever. He completed a lifetime together with you. And he passed away, he was 70. And as I mentioned to you yesterday, King David says that living 70 years, a normal person lives 70 years. If God blesses them, it's 80 years. But 70 is a full cycle. Just like the week, God created the world in 7 days. Every decade is a day. Bruce lived 7 full decades. And he finished the Shabbos on Saturday night. When Shabbat was over, he passed away. It's another level of completion, of completeness, of a full cycle that he had in his life. And on top of it, he passed away on Rosh Hashanah. This is, in my career of being for 29 years, I know only one more person that I did a funeral, she passed away on Rosh Hashanah. It's a very, very special thing. But again, Rosh Hashanah, he finished the year, and then he passed away. He finished the 50, he finished the 70, he finished the year, he finished everything that he wanted to do, and then he passed away. And he passed away on Shabbat, not Rosh Hashanah, but not only Rosh Hashanah, but Rosh Hashanah it happens to be on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you know, every person when he goes to heaven, tradition tells us that he's being judged. How many good things? That's why by eulogy we find the good things about the person, because we are helping him, we are, so to speak, defending him in heaven. But when on Shabbat, the court is closed. That a person who dies on Shabbat goes straight to heaven. The Talmud tells us that a person who dies on Shabbat is a righteous person. That he had a certain higher level, not just he passed away on Shabbat, that he goes straight to heaven. And in the synagogues, I'm sure some of you saw, then on this year, Rosh Hashanah, the first day we didn't blow the shofar. When Rosh Hashanah happens to be on Shabbat, we don't blow the shofar. We are silent. What could be a more appropriate thing to boast than this? He was a man of very few words. He didn't speak. He didn't need to blow his trumpet. He didn't need to say what he thinks. He only answered when somebody asked him. When you asked him a question and you asked his opinion, then he told you. He never offered his opinion on his own. That's something I started to wonder if he's Jewish, you know. Jewish people, they only offer opinion when nobody is asking them. They're always quick to say what they think. The only one who is, you only have to beg him to tell you what he thinks. Because he was so sure with himself, he didn't need to say it. He didn't need to hear his voice. He knew what he thinks. And the same in general in education, when somebody asks you a question and you give him an answer, he remembers it. I can tell lectures and classes and speeches to people forever, they don't remember anything. 5 minutes later, they don't know what I was talking about. But if they ask the question, they will and they got an answer, they'll remember it forever. That was Bruce. He was talking, and he had his opinion. He had very clear opinions, but he was not going to. He didn't have the need to share it with the whole world. But what's interesting here, he passed away on Rosh Hashanah. First of all, you never forget when his Yortzeit is. Rosh Hashanah, that's his Yortzeit forever and ever. The first day of Rosh Hashanah, that's his Yortzeit. But you know, to die on Rosh Hashanah is even more for the family. Usually, the day of the Yortzeit is a sad day, as you remember when your loved one passed away and is gone. But Bruce wanted you to remember him in a holiday, in a good day, in a happy day. You should remember the good memories from him. You should remember how you celebrated Rosh Hashanahs with him, how you celebrate holidays, because he was so much into family. He wants his family to celebrate his life. Even he died young, 70. Today is a very young age. And the last few years I saw many times, you see how much he suffers, but he still came. Every time when I saw him, he came to me, to event, and what he wanted, you should remember him by the Rosh Hashanah dinner, not in a sad way, crying together, but celebrating together. In Judaism, there is Iskar service and there is the Yortzeit. The Yortzeit usually is on the day the person passed. It's a sad day. Iskar is on a holiday. On a holiday, you're not allowed to be sad. He made sure that you remember him on days of joy. And I cannot reiterate enough how much I heard yesterday, how much the family was important to him. The boys, but even more, Rachel. He was the defender from the two boys to make sure that they don't hit her up alive. You know, there's two big guys, and then she needed somebody to defend her. And he had the axe that he used to tell any boy who came to the house, I have an axe for you, and if you're going to hurt my daughter, and until he found the perfect husband, then he's still afraid of the axe, and he's behaving until today. And he will behave forever and ever because he has a lot to learn. Your father-in-law, was an example of being a husband and a father. You know, you told me yesterday that when you went together to Israel and Metzada, you were very afraid of the height. And then you met a woman, a blind woman, and you adopted her, and you helped her to go everywhere. And this helped you to deal with the fear. I think that was a lesson from now on. The best way to deal with a loss, to move on with life, and I'm sure that's what your husband wanted from you, is to move on, is by helping others. I know you do it anyway, you're volunteering anyway. The more you help others, the more you forget about yourself, the more satisfaction you get. You have so many people to help, children, grandchildren. God willing, one day will be great-grandchildren. You have a long life in front of you, and your whole family needs you. And to the children and grandchildren, the best way to remember your loved ones, your father and your grandfather, especially when he passed away on Rosh Hashanah, is when we do a mitzvah, we connect to him. It's like sending a Rosh Hashanah card. And in this way, when you do the mitzvah, you cannot do mitzvahs anymore. We can do it in his memory. But when you do the mitzvah, at the same time he thinks about you and he's praying for you to God. Usually people go on graveside of the loved ones before Rosh Hashanah or between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. For you it's going to be the Yortzeit and Rosh Hashanah together. Tehi nishmato tzura b'tzorah chaim, and now we hear from the family. Jeremy, whatever you want. Rachel first. In your father's side, that she was first.
I had a very special and different kind of relationship with my dad than my brothers. I was the definition of a daddy's little girl. As my brothers would say, I could do no wrong. They would talk sports for hours with him, but with me, we talked about friendships, issues with work and school. He showed me how to parallel park 2 to 3 times because I just couldn't get it. He taught me how to write a check, the importance of a good, unrecognizable signature. We shared a passion for TV shows. We'd sit together watching like Gilmore Girls, discuss what happened on the latest America's Got Talent, and he taught me how to change a tire, and then shortly after realized I probably wouldn't do it, so he gave me the number to AAA. He was truly one of my best friends. If something good or bad in my life occurred, he was the first one I'd call to share it with. He'd always walk me through challenges, like when my tire blew out on the freeway traveling home from Columbus. I called him. He told me, breathe. And remember, I'm not there, so you need to call AAA, then call me back when the tire's changed and let me know that you're okay. He knew just what to say to make me laugh, to make me cry, or to comfort me. If I was having a bad day, I could just curl up next to him and he'd hold me and just not say a word. He was my protector. Any man that came into that house, he'd had to go through a line of questioning and they had to be shown the famous axe. He'd say, if they didn't treat me well, I'd have the pleasure of meeting that axe again and remind them that I had two very strong and overprotective older brothers. He had a love for food. He loved to come up with really weird and disgusting combinations, and I still believe it was to try to gross us out, like his famous peanut butter, sour cream, and tuna omelet. He always drove us to do our very best in everything, in school, swimming, my passion for art. He'd say, always give 110% in what you do, or don't bother doing it. He loved to shop around for the best bargains. He knew where the best prices were to get groceries. He would make sure he'd stop at every single store around town to get them. He could do almost any math problem in his head. It drove Mom and I crazy. We'd look at him and say, seriously, how are you doing that? He knew every single phone number by heart. He would see it once or twice and he would just remember it. He always gave us the best advice when it was never asked. If Mom and I were not getting along, he was always there whispering in my ear what to say or do to help us fix things. He knew what I'd like before I knew what I liked. He came with me to help me pick out my wedding dress. He didn't just sit there in the corner, he was an active participant. He walked around the store pulling out dresses, and he actually found the dress and correctly predicted which one I would go with. He was very active in our lives. He would drive us at all hours of the day for swim practice and would stay. He would make sure he knew when we weren't doing our best and would yell at us when he saw us hanging out at the deep end too long. He drove us to Hebrew school every Wednesday and Sunday. He came to all of our swim meets cheering very loudly from the stands to make sure we and anyone in the 50-mile radius could hear. He could help us with our homework, giving us practice spelling tests and math problems. He'd come with us trick-or-treating no matter the weather conditions. He just was always there. To me, he was the definition of what a great father should be. I will forever be grateful for our relationship, the close relationship he had with my husband, and my two kids that he had a chance to spend time with, get to know, even if it was for a short time. I love you, Dad. I always will.
If I'm not looking up at you, it's not anything out of disrespect. I had an opportunity to do a speech at my brother and sister-in-law's wedding, and it lasted 22 seconds because I didn't write it down. So it's all written down. I'm going to get through this. So, good afternoon. It's great to see family and friends that meant so much to my dad and my family. Typically, I'm a man of very few words, but today I have a lot to say. So go ahead and get comfortable. It's going to be a long one. After all, I have some making up to do because the 22-second speech that I'm so famous for. Dad, I'm going to do my best to get through this, but tears will be flowing. Gail asked me to say a few things, so here goes. Grandma, Dad loved you. He wanted to make you proud. Listening to Gail talk about your childhood with Dad the last few days confirms how he learned how to look out for his loved ones. You asked him to walk Gail to school and watch out for her, which he did. He was there to walk Gail down the aisle at our wedding, and he made sure to look out for Mom, Aaron, Rachel, and I. My only question to you, and we'll address it more later, why didn't you let him become a professional golfer? I'll share more about that later. Gail, Dad loved you. He took pride in being an older brother and looking out for you. He even taken the blame for things that you may have done, as that is what he felt his responsibility was to do. I get that feeling, right? Apple, toilet, yeah. I'm thankful that you had time in the last few months, Gail, to share more time together and recall memories of your childhood. He wanted to be there for you and your family as much as he could, going as far to making sure he got out of the hospital to be at Allison and Brian's wedding the same day. All right, Dad, here we go. Losing a father is the hardest thing we go through in life. Watching my father battle with illness the last few years of his life was the worst. My father was determined to live his life to the fullest with his family, and nothing was ever as important to him. Like many of you, you probably feel you had the most amazing dad in the world. But man, my father, Bruce Harlan Salomon, was a special, special man. My father, he was an extraordinary man who acted like an ordinary one. Unlike superheroes portrayed on TV or movies that wear a cape, my dad didn't wear a cape. He didn't have to. Those close to him felt his strength and love. Just like a superhero, he had many strengths, but he wasn't always perfect, which is what made him perfect to me. His strengths and weaknesses were life lessons that he was able to share with Aaron, Rachel, and I. Those life lessons developed us into the fathers and mother that he wanted us to be. He was so proud of us and still is. To those that knew him well, you knew that family was everything to him. My mom, his 3 children, Aaron, Rachel, and myself, his daughter-in-laws Elaine and Meredith, and son-in-law Mark, and 7 grandkids, Michaela, Braden, Peyton, Aiden, Harper, Caleb, and Haley. We were his everything. He took such pride in us. He was always there for us, making us a priority over anything else. Dad, or Pa as the grandkids call him, was the most loving man. He was a coach, teacher, cheerleader, and mentor. I didn't learn about Dad's athletic abilities until I was in high school. We heard very few stories about his childhood accomplishments, but Dad never spoke about it. He was quite the golfer growing up, and a successful 6-foot, 100-pound wrestler. He would sneak onto the golf course and play into the dark of night. He loved golf and wanted to be a professional golfer. But Grandma told him Jewish boys become doctors, dentists, and lawyers. Grandma, after this is over, we need a talk. It wasn't until Aaron and I were older that Dad took us golfing. Even after years of not playing, he could still read the green and make a putt that you didn't think was makeable. Dad was always focused on providing the tools for his kids to be successful. He put his career aside and made his family the priority. Dad didn't measure success by how much money he had in the bank. He looked at Mom and his kids and viewed our happiness and the way he was raising 3 kids to be smart, talented, loving, and good humans with a strong Jewish faith as his success. And while I might be biased, my dad's definition of success, he was very, very successful. Dad, the coach. Aaron and I got involved in sports like softball and swimming. After watching Aaron play on a softball team being coached by a parent that didn't know what they were doing, Dad took matters in his own hands, became a coach. After all, his philosophy he wanted to instill on us was to give everything we do 110%. And when Dad took over as a coach the following year, we were winning games, but we were also learning life lessons. Not only was he teaching his own kids, but he was teaching others. He took pride in making all around him stronger. Dad raised us to be competitive kids, so competitive that every Halloween, Aaron, Rachel, and I made it our mission to collect as much candy as possible. Might not sound like much to you, but we would run, not walk from house to house and jump through landscaping of homes to accomplish our goals of filling a king-size pillowcase on Halloween. Never came close to eating all of it. Didn't matter. We were going 110%. Dad had so much fun keeping up with us every year at Halloween. The competitiveness never ended. Mom and Dad had to find creative ways to keep us, maybe Aaron more than anyone else, quiet in the car ride to swim meets. They challenged us to suck on Dot's candy as long as we could, just to keep us, Aaron, quiet. There's so many memories. So I just mentioned swimming. Swimming was a very large part of our childhood. Lucky for Aaron, Rachel, and I, Dad wasn't a really good swimmer. Can you imagine Dad coaching us? No. Man, Dad took such pride in our swimming and loved watching us develop into very successful swimmers. He never missed a practice. Dad would wake up early Monday through Saturday, make us PB&J or tuna fish for lunch, and take us to 6 a.m. practices. He was there to pick us up from school and to take us to the afternoon practices, which for most people was still during the workday hours. But again, we, his kids, were his priority. Most parents would drop off their kids at practice, go shopping or get work done. Not Dad. He would sit there, watch our practice, cheer us on as the only parent at the pool. Sometimes it was embarrassing, but he just wanted us to excel and give it 110%. When he had a bad practice or just a bad day, Dad encouraged us to do better. Not that he was the expert swimmer, but Dad could in his own way remind you to try harder, find things you can do to improve, and he'd let you know. I'm so much like my dad, it's scary. I bite my lower lip like Dad, except when I do it, I'm thinking really hard, I'm not mad. He was so proud of us. Dad and Mom used to wear these red Salomon hats. Aaron's wearing one today. He used to say it was to find him in a crowded pool and auditorium filled with hundreds of parents. I think it was just because he was so proud of his Salomon family and he wanted all of the parents to know. Dad was the loudest one at swim meets. Before each of our races, Dad would scream, and I'm not as good as Dad is at this, so I'm gonna give it a shot. Go Aaron, or go Jeremy, or go Rachel. And he was much louder than that. Right before we got on the blocks. Dad was our biggest cheerleader, and he was so proud of us. He wanted everyone to know his kids were in the race. My theory, though, Dad wanted to intimidate the other swimmers that were in that race. Dad continued to bring his cheerleading skills with him to his grandkids' baseball games. Dad was so proud of them. He made it to as many of the grandkids' games, concerts, graduations, and he would even take my kids to the father walk at school when I couldn't make it because I was traveling. Dad, you were always there for our family. My father, the teacher. There was a rule in the house, and I'm not sure that Aaron and Rachel cared about this rule as much as I did. Dad knew how much we, maybe just me, look forward to swimming at practice. But the rule was no practice until you finish your homework and eat your dinner. Fast forward 30 years, and I'm the fastest eater you will ever meet. Dad and Mom would sit and do homework with us. Things that we didn't fully understand that were taught to us in the classroom, we learned at the kitchen table at our house in Warrendale. Man, Dad was an amazing teacher. School was no exception for his kids growing up. We were taught to give it 110%. Dad's ability to teach math and history were top notch. I catch myself with my own kids teaching them math the way Dad taught me, even though they're learning a different way. At the time, as a kid, it was intense, sitting at that table, hearing Dad walk through some of the lessons. Looking back, I cherish every one of those moments. It taught me so much. To many outsiders, one can say that our family didn't take many vacations. Definition of a vacation is an extended period of leisure and recreation, especially one spent away from home or in traveling. Some people vacation to get away from stresses, to reboot, to get away from this Cleveland weather, or maybe to simply get time with family. Dad vacationed more than anyone I know. Dad loved the time he spent with Mom, Aaron, Rachel, and I. Every weekend was a vacation. He spent time with the ones he loved and doing what he loved, watching his family compete and give it 110%. Or taking us on Sunday to Sunday school and spending time with family. That's all he wanted or needed. He was a simple man. As we grew up and became working adults, getting married and having kids, Dad shared his love with our spouses and his grandkids. From not only being the first to call on birthdays and anniversaries, but go on the distance and make sure that he saw you on those days, attending grandkids' birthday parties, preschool graduations, concert, athletic events, picking up the grandkids from school and taking them to practice or Hebrew school. Just any excuse he could find to spend time with his grandkids. Or teaching Michaela to drive. He may have lost his touch there. Sorry, Mac. Just kidding. Dad always made his family the priority. Dad, you lived a great life. You were very successful. You provided a great life for us. You taught me what success as a parent looks like. You taught me the importance of family, being a supporting and loving husband, providing the tools and resources to help my children grow into loving, smart, talented men. Your legacy and spirit will live on through the love we share with our future generations, of our family, and the stories we share about you. we are blessed with so many memories of you. Bruce Harlan Salomon was and will be remembered and loved as a son, brother, cousin, friend, husband, brother-in-law, father, uncle, grandpa, father-in-law, coach, teacher, cheerleader, and mentor. Dad, the day has finally come that you must cheer us on from above. Look over us. We will always be thinking of you, looking up to you for your guidance and just to speak to you. Godspeed, my father. Go, Bruce. I love you and I miss you.
Please rise for the memorial service. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, אמצי מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת בנימין בן אברהם שהלך לעולמו, בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. לכם בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. God, full of compassion, who dwells anigh, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, into the soul of Binyamin ben Avraham, who has gone to his world, and for whose memory we pray. May his repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings, and bind his soul in the bound of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he repose on his resting place in peace, and let us all respond, Amen. We'll continue the service to Ilka Cemetery and for burial. It's going to be Shiva. Friend will be sitting at 3334 Cracksdale Road, on Tuesday from 6 to 8, Wednesday from 2 to 4, from 6 to 8, and Thursday from 2 to 4.